Hello, this is Edith Neumeyer, and I'm the author of the book The Mystery of Adam. I will continue my studies on Messiah. And I said last time that I'm going to kind of go into now what is part of Messiah, which is the bride. And so today I'm going to uh, look more into who that bride of Messiah is. So I know part of that was revealed to Paul, and so I will bring Paul in once in a while, and just to show what Paul is talking about, Jesus and the bride. When Jesus was here on this earth, he used a lot of parables with the bridegroom and the bride, and he referred to himself as the bridegroom. And of course, we need to think, who is this bride? Last time we talked about who are God's true people, who are God's true Israel. And so I want to continue today because this theme, or this part of the bride of Mashiach is very, very important, because Mashiach really comes to his bride. So his bride is a very important part, and we will talk quite a lot about the bride, and especially what God has revealed to me with regards to a parallel to my book, The Mystery of Adam. So because Messiah is the second Adam, there's a parallel between the first Adam and the second Adam. And so I want to kind of show this parallel. But today I want to go into, um, continue to look at who this bride is, who are the people of God, the true people of God, who is this true Israel. Okay, now we know from Genesis, let me look, I think it's 29. Get it? I can't get it. Yeah, Genesis 29. When we look at Genesis 29, we can um, see, or before 29, no, actually starting with 29, we can see that Jacob, a descendant of Abraham, the grandson of Abraham, who became the one that carried on the lineage of Abraham, he had two wives, and out of those two wives came the 12 tribes of Jacob. God gave Jacob a new name, and that new name was Israel. And so these 12 tribes were called Israel. They were called the Hebrews, or Israel. And these tribes made up the sons of both, actually, the sons of four women, if you really think about it, because it was the sons of Rachel and the sons of her maidservant, and the sons of Leah and her maidservant. So really four women made up these 12 tribes. And that's really interesting. So we're going to continue today to really look at, now we can look, when in the Old Testament, the Jews always look at several levels of interpretation. The first one is the literal interpretation. So we have the literal story of Jacob, and who was named Israel, and his two wives and I guess two concubines, and the sons of these four wives, or two wives and two concubines. And that's the literal meaning. But then we also have a spiritual meaning. And Paul was given a lot of this spiritual understanding about the literal story about Jacob. Of course, we know that Jacob is a type of Christ. Okay, he is a type of Mashiach, and so then we need to be looking at, because where I said Mashiach is usually not alone; he comes in a package, and that includes his bride. So then let's look at the bride today of Israel. Okay, the bride of Israel. Who who is this bride? It's not just one bride, right? There's two. So my thinking is, or what God is giving me, my interpretation or inspiration, is that Leah and Rachel are actually the two types of people that made up Israel. Okay, two types of people that made up Israel. And there's also something in Ezekiel that I want to bring up, that I also try to look at it from a spiritual interpretation. But let's start with, let's start with the story of Rachel and Leah. Well, Jacob had to run from Esau, literally run from him, because Esau wanted to kill him because he took his birthright. And so he had to run, and so his father sent him away, and his mother sent him away to his uncle. And when he got to his uncle, he met Rachel first, and he fell in love with Rachel, and I believe the father of Rachel was Laban, and so he asked Laban what he wanted for Rachel, and he said, well, 7 years, work for me for 7 years. And so Jacob worked for 7 years for Rachel. However, when he got married, and I don't know, it's the culture, I guess in that culture you didn't see the wife, when you got married. You didn't get to see her until the next day, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, so they had the marriage ceremony. In the morning he wakes up and he is married to Leah and not Rachel. I would have been pretty upset because Leah was deceiving me, and my now father-in-law, both of them were deceiving me. Okay? So, but hey, damage was done, and he was married to Leah. And so what he did, he worked another 7 years for Rachel, and then ended up with two women, two wives. Okay? Unfortunately, he loved Rachel very, very much, and though Rachel didn't bear children, so she says, well, go into my handmaiden and bear children with her. So he actually did get, I think, a son or two from that handmaiden. But Rachel's sons outnumbered the sons of this handmaiden. Eventually, Rachel got two sons, Joseph and Benjamin, and she actually died right after Benjamin. And how tragic. And Jacob never kind of got over losing Rachel because he just loved her so much. So the sons of Leah were really, really jealous, very jealous of the sons of Rachel. And they were hoping that when after Rachel died, that Jacob now would come into the tents of Leah. And he would never do that. He would never do that. Now, I know I couldn't figure it out very much either, but it's kind of a strange story. I mean, here you have, he's being deceived, by his father-in-law and his first wife. And though he loves Rachel very much, He doesn't really, yeah, I don't think he loves Leah, but he still gives her equal rights, as a wife. And so the children of all four women he accepts all children, all 12 male children, as his children and his heir. I don't know why, okay? But of course it's God doing it. But again, all 12, and they call them the 12 tribes of Israel, right? All 12 tribes did not um, receive really the inheritance. It was only Judah. See, God promised Abraham that through him a seed would come, an heir would come, a descendant would come through Abraham. And that descendant would be Messiah. And Abraham knew that. Adam knew that. Okay? Adam knew that God would bring forth a seed, a Messiah who would redeem the whole world. And then this promise was continued in Abraham. God specifically gave Abraham the promise that this Messiah would come through his lineage, okay, through his descendants. But of course, not all descendants. It was not through Ishmael, it was only, through Isaac, Jacob, and then Judah. And so again, that's what the lineage is, Judah. But still, the 12 tribes um, were symbolic for the multitude of people that, again, symbolic for the multitude of people that would come out of this Messiah, okay? That would be saved and redeemed by this Messiah. So now you have in Jacob, you have two nations, really, or should I say, I can't say four because there are four women involved, right? So they were really four nations. There were more than two. So now you have this put together, two women put together into one bride, if you want to. Okay. So I believe that Rachel and Leah are symbolic or are a type of this bride of Mashiach. Okay. This bride of Mashiach that is made up of Jews and Gentiles. Again, Jews coming out of Judah and Gentiles, if you want, coming out of Rachel. Because, see, Joseph, he was rejected by his brothers and was sold and was sent into become a slave to the Gentiles, to Egypt. And he also, because he didn't have any other choice, married a Gentile woman. She married the daughter of a priest, I believe, an Egyptian priest. So, so his sons came out of a Gentile background. Okay, and we see that many of the women in Jesus' lineage come out of from Gentile women, which again is symbolic that God is trying to say here, hey, my people will be made up of Gentiles and Jews, not just Jews. Okay? Again, Jews, tribe of Judah, right? So my Israel will be made up of Gentiles and Jews. Okay? Jews like Judah and Gentiles, that are non-Judah. So the whole tribe of Israel, the whole people of Israel are a mixed bunch. So now saying that, let's go to um, Ephesians 2, and I'm going to start reading Ephesians 2:11 through 22. Now listen to what Paul has to say. And he never comes out and makes that comparison between Rachel and Leah and actually this mixed bunch of people, because see, God promised Abraham that he will become the father of many nations, not just one nation, but many nations. So listen to what he says, Paul says here. In 11, he says, therefore remember that formerly you who are Gentiles by birth and called uncircumcised by those who call themselves the circumcision, remember that at that time you were separate from Christ, excluded from citizenship in Israel, and foreigners to the covenants of the promise, without hope and without God in the world. But now in Jesus Christ, you who once were far away have been brought near by the blood of Christ. For he himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility, by setting aside in his flesh the law with its commandments and regulations. His purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of two, thus making peace, and in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility. He came and preached peace to you who were far away and peace to those who were near, for through him we both have access to the Father by one Spirit. Consequently, you are no longer foreigners and strangers, but fellow citizens with God's people and also members of his household, building on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, with Jesus Christ himself as the chief cornerstone. In him, the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. And in him, you too are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by his Spirit. So this is the bottom line. Matter of fact, this last verses that I read about the building in the temple, I want to get into more detail later. But it's good to think about that right now, because another way of looking at his bride is the temple. The temple also is part, and the temple is also the bride is also included in the temple. Okay, he is building. We know that Messiah is building the temple. Nobody else can build the temple, and I'll talk about it later. And so that temple is part of, or is actually God's bride. And I will explain that a little more later. But here, this is interesting to see it from Paul, who was again the rabbi of rabbis, who knew the Old Testament. So he's bringing this together to say that in Christ, two were put together again. Okay, we were far apart, were put together. Now we know there was hostility between the real sons of Jacob. The sons of Leah, okay, hated the sons of Rachel. And so there was much hostility between the two. They hated Joseph. Okay, why? Because he said, "Oh my goodness, I have these dreams." Of course, these dreams who were becoming real in the future, and he saw that ahead of time, and they were so jealous. And then, of course, his father made him this this coat of many colors and treating him in a special way. So we can see that there is hostility, and we, in a spiritual sense, we also see hostility between Jews and Gentiles right now, Jews and Christians. Okay, in one part, Paul even says that the Christians will start either choose to be angry. Okay, it will stir up the Jews' anger. The Christians will. Why? Because they want to be the special people. They've always wanted to be the special ones. From the time of Leah, they wanted to be special. Now, yes, they are special. If they really think they're special, they should be looking at what is really special about them. And of course, not all sons of Leah, but only Judah, the tribe of Judah. I mean, they are extremely special to bring forth the Messiah. Uh, I think that is just remarkable, something very, very remarkable. And again, not all of Judah, but only the line of Jesse, David, and Nathan, and then of course, going through Mary. So yeah, there's still hostility. I think Jews still have a hostility towards the Christians, and they still want to keep themselves separate and don't tell the world about their God, really. So anyway, so this is what Paul said, and if you want to read it, it is in Ephesians 2:11 through 22. Now I'm going to go to something in the Old Testament. Again, this Old Testament one, I don't know of anybody who took it the way I took it. I mean, I'm thinking about these two becoming one, and this Ezekiel passage just pops right up and has always been popping up in my head every time I think about the two becoming one. And the same thing with Rachel and Leah, that the two, become one. So here's another one in Ezekiel 37, starting with 16. And he says to Ezekiel, who is the prophet, Son of man, take a stick of wood and write on it, belonging to Judah and the Israelites associated with him. Okay, so who are the people that are associated with Judah? I don't know. I can only think one of them. That's the Benjamin, some of the Levites. And I don't know the next one he is saying, then take another stick of wood and write on it, belonging to Joseph, that is to Ephraim, and all the Israelites associated with him. So traditionally, the Jews interpreted these two people as the two kingdoms, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. And I'm just not 100% sure if this is true. Okay. Yeah, maybe again literally, but again, I'm taking this on a spiritual level. So who are these two groups? The Son of Man, take a stick of wood and write on it, belonging to Judah, the Jews, and the Israelites associated with him. Then take another stick of wood and write on it, belonging to Joseph, that is to Ephraim, because see, Joseph got two portions. Each of his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, got a portion. So Joseph really got two portions of the inheritance. And so he's only talking about Joseph and Ephraim. I bet Ephraim is the firstborn. And so he's talking about belonging to Joseph and the Israelites associated with him. Okay, now let's look at the next one. Join them together into one stick so that they will become one in your hand. When your people ask you, won't you tell us what you mean by this? Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am going to take the stick of Joseph, which is in Ephraim's hand, and of the Israelite tribes associated with him, and join it to Judah's stick, and I will make them into a single stick of wood, and they will become one in my hand. Okay? And that is and hold out the pieces of wood you have inscribed so the people can see them, and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will take the Israelites out of the nations where they have gone, and I will gather them from all around and bring them back into their own land. Okay, that's now again going into something else. Okay, and I will make them one nation in the land on the mountain of Israel. There will be one king over all of them, and they will never again be two nations or be divided into two kingdoms. Okay, so because of that, two kingdoms, okay, because we know that the kingdoms, were divided. And so literally the Jews interpreted this as the two kingdoms will come together and become one again under one king. Okay. However, spiritually, it just totally, the Holy Spirit is just revealing to me that this really on a higher level would really mean not necessarily that um, Israel would come together as one again, but that Israel would be come together under the Jews and the Gentiles. Okay, so the same thing that Paul was talking about, that two would become one under one king, which is so true. Okay, because I just read what Paul said, that under Jesus Christ we have become people, of God, children of Abraham, and we the Gentiles who were strangers now are becoming one with Israel or Judah. We are becoming Israel as well. And so I wanted to bring this in because I have never had anybody, talk about this, but it is really, I think, just intriguing to look at it that way. Okay, to take it take this more as symbolic. This is symbolic, right? We have these two, the split kingdom, but we also have a split bride, which is Leah and Rachel. Okay, and we also have a split bride in the spiritual sense, which is Judah or Israel and the Gentiles. So I would like to put that together because I really see that very clearly, that from the beginning, God's intention was for this Messiah to come all people, to all people who will accept him as Messiah. I said last time that Paul said the people that are truly God's people and the true Israel are the ones that are spiritual, okay, that have accepted God and are following Messiah, who hear Messiah, okay, and follow him. Not any Jew, not any Israelite, not any Hebrew coming from Israel. Israel, Isaac, Abraham, they were types of people, okay? Not all their descendants are becoming God's people. It's just not an automatic. Just because you're born to Abraham does not mean that you are now have the privilege of becoming a child of God. Only people that are spiritually born. And that spiritually, these people that are spiritually born, they come out of the Israelites and the Gentiles. Okay? That would make them all Israelites. They are all children of Abraham if they um, if they believe, they have faith like Abraham. And so I wanted to bring up this story about Rachel because I think that is very, very important. That Rachel and Leah are this type of the bride of Christ, who um, is a bride that is, yeah, twofold. Okay, twofold. I don't believe in, um, you know, God is done with the Jews and now there's the Gentiles or there's the Christians. That's not the way it is. Okay, God is never done with the Jews. Uh, God is never done with any of the human beings. He is always interested in drawing human beings to himself. He is never done with humankind. Okay? But again, he doesn't exclude Gentiles either. He is a God that wants to reach all of humanity. And in order to do that, he had to become a human being in the lineage of Judah, in the lineage of Abraham, in the lineage of Jacob, in the lineage of David. Okay? And most of all, who is it? Mary. That woman, the seed of the woman. See, God told Adam that the Messiah would come from the seed of the woman. Okay? Yeah, we make this big thing about the men. Okay? Abraham, Jacob. But it is also the women that are most important. Leah and Rachel, okay, are very important. Why did God do that? I don't know. I just don't know. You know, um, it's amazing. I mean, how He works. Using this um, deceiving Leah and then uses a son of Leah, and it's amazing the way He works. And we saw, of course, Tamar, and how Tamar was chosen. Yeah, think about that. It was Tamar that was chosen, not Judah's wife, not Judah's wife, but Tamar. Tamar was chosen to be that woman through which the next lineage would come. And then, of course, we see so many other women that were so important, and they were pretty shady women, okay? Gentile women, too, that again, they are symbolic for the Jews and the Gentiles coming together. Okay, when we think about Ruth, Gentile, Rahab, Gentile. Okay, so the Gentiles and the Jews come together under one, under Jesus Christ, under Messiah, and under the God of Israel and Abraham. And of course, under the God of Noah and Shem, under the God of, Adam and Melchizedek, all the way going back, okay? All the way going back. It is not a Jewish thing. It is a humanity thing. All humans um, were, included. Again, this is Ezekiel 37, and it's 16 through 22. So read that again. Look at the Rachel and Leah, and kind of look at that as well. And I need to finish because I've been talking too long. But think about it. Think about this. What do you think about it? I know this is something probably you have never heard about. But again, there's so many types, so many pictures in the Old Testament, in the stories of the Old Testament, that are only a type of Mashiach and his bride. And again, the bride being who? The people of God, Gentiles, and Jews and Gentiles. And again, we will see that next time even more when we talk about the temple and how that kind of comes in. But so maybe I'll talk about that next time. I'll have to think about it some more. Okay. Anyways, I'm finishing up. Leave your questions on the bottom or your comments. I want to hear what you have to say about it. I know this is really interesting stuff. See you later.